This episode of Coronavirus North Carolina News Brief is brought to you by Right By You Mortgage. Wherever life takes you, we're right by you. Visit rightbyyouMortgage.com/podcast to learn more.
From WRAL News and the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, this is your Coronavirus North Carolina News Brief for Monday, November 9th, 2020. I'm Brian Schrader. North Carolina's case count climbed to record highs over the weekend. President-elect Joe Biden announces his coronavirus task force, and Pfizer says its COVID vaccine is looking to be 90% effective. WRAL's Ken Smith spoke with UNC infectious disease specialist Dr. David Wall about the weekend's big headlines.
Listen, of course, we have to start with the big news. Pfizer announcing early data showing its vaccine is effective against the virus. The company plans to seek U.S. review later this month. First of all, your reaction, and what does this mean for a timetable when it comes to getting a vaccine that's effective?
Yeah, no, this is really encouraging news. We don't have published data yet. A committee met to look at the early data from the study. This is a study, remember, of 44,000 people. And they're waiting to see, once they get about 160 infections, whether or not the vaccine works. There's 94 infections that have occurred, and they say it looks really effective. So I suspect a lot of those infections are in people who got the placebo. So this is good news, but we have to see more data. We really do. And we don't know anything about safety just yet.
And, speaking of data, Dr. Wall, you see the data, you see the numbers. Given this huge surge in cases, what are your big takeaways as we move into the winter months?
Yeah, this is really concerning. So we have more cases in North Carolina and across the country than we had a month ago, and more than we had when we went into lockdown. So we're headed in the wrong direction. There's more people out there right now with COVID-19 than there ever has been before. So we can't let our guard down. We actually have to keep our guard up and maybe even keep it higher.
And, Dr. Wall, when we look at Europe and a lot of the European countries, they've implemented new lockdown restrictions. What can we learn from what's happening in Europe?
Yeah, they did a better job than we did at locking down in the beginning and curtailing those big surges, but they've pulled back probably too quickly. That's what we're learning. We've never really had the same sort of outcome here. We've never really locked down long enough, and then when we rolled back too quickly. I think we need an in-between way, and I think we're going to see that over the next few months. More masks, more distancing, a little bit of going back to where we were without there being bars. I think the rallies, people getting together, those things are really concerning to me.
When President-elect Biden was elected over the weekend, there were a lot of people getting into the streets, just like you mentioned, not social distancing. Some were wearing masks. And that, you say, has to stop.
Well, I understand why people want to get together. But this virus doesn't care what political party you're affiliated with. It doesn't care why you're in the street. I have to say that I was really heartened by seeing a lot of folks, most everyone with masks on for some of the celebrations. But we really have to be thoughtful and careful. Even if we're celebrating something that's important, we have to keep our distance. We have to be thoughtful about it. And I do worry, regardless of why people are together, that there are opportunities for the virus to transmit from one person to another.
And Dr. Wall, before I let you go, I got to talk about this new study with families trying to get together during the holidays. It's a natural thing for families to want to do. But there's an interesting study about families in the same household when it comes to COVID-19.
Yeah, there's a really interesting study in the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report put out by the CDC. These are households in Tennessee and Wisconsin. They followed people who were positive and looked at their household members. They found that 50% of their household members tested positive and 35% were negative and then turned positive the week after they started following them. It shows that there is household transmission, something a colleague of mine, Jessica Lynn, has found here in North Carolina. So we have to be really thoughtful. If you have symptoms, you have to separate yourself from your family. You really do. Certainly if you're diagnosed with COVID-19, you need to isolate. And even your family members who've been around you should probably quarantine. I know this sounds severe, but if you have symptoms, you really have to separate yourself. Don't be in denial. Don't go to family gatherings. Don't be around other people. That's a really big take-home message.
President-elect Joe Biden's coronavirus task force includes doctors and scientists who have served in previous administrations, many of them experts in public health, vaccines, and infectious diseases. This has been your Coronavirus North Carolina News Brief for Monday, November 9th, 2020. Let us know what you think of the podcast. You can leave a rating or review wherever you listen, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a new episode. I'm Brian Schrader. Thanks for listening.
When it comes to buying a new home, you want to know that you're in good hands. At Right By You Mortgage, the dedicated team of lenders live in your community and are committed to being right by you every step of the way. Whether you're a growing family, a relocating professional, or a retiring couple, they'll partner with you to find the right loan to fit your unique home buying needs. Plus, listeners of this podcast will enjoy the Right By You Mortgage on-time closing guarantee. They promise to close on time or they'll pay you and the seller $500. Visit rightbyyoumortgage.com/podcast to take advantage of this offer. Wherever life takes you, we're right by you. Go to rightbyyoumortgage.com/podcast for full details. Equal housing lender, NMLS number 402136.